I'm from the UK, if that's any needed context. So way back in 2016, when the whole killer clown epidemic was huge, I was walking through the woods at around 10 p.m. alone, in order to get to a party and gathering that was happening in a secluded part of the forest. It was almost pitch black and I could barely see in front of me besides the flash on my phone. Everything seemed normal as I was walking to the party. I got to a long stretch of woods with no defined path, but it was the quickest way to the party, so I took it. As I got around midway through, I heard something to my left. I turned around and saw a shadowy figure sitting on a fallen log, but I couldn't make out if it was just shadows from the moonlight or if it was an actual person. I made the mistake of shining my phone light directly at it, and I was instantly terrified. Standing there alone in the middle of the woods was a large man dressed as a clown with full face paint and sporting the creepiest smile imaginable. I tried to call 5 different people as I was passing him, and then I heard him get up behind me. I instantly started sprinting towards the end of the long stretch, onto a path which had a barbed wire fence down the side of it. During this sprint, I was pretending to be on the phone with one of my friends, and I could hear him running after me, but there was no chance in hell that I would be turning around to see if I was right. When I got to the path, I jumped over the fence as fast as I could and sliced my hands as I did so. I then turned around and kept running backwards as I saw the clown, standing behind the fence, just staring at me and smiling. I didn't stop until I got to the party, and I was scared for a very long time after this. You have to bear in mind that there were so many rumors around this time, especially of people being killed by people dressed as clowns. While I will never know if this man had evil intentions or was just trying to scare me, it was extremely strange and scary to live through. So, in conclusion, killer clown man from the woods, let's not meet. I've never spoken on this, not even to my parents or anyone around me that I know. I'm a 22-year-old male, and this happened when I was 14 through the age of 15. My friends and I would always hang out at the local mall during our free time. One day I had arrived earlier than my friends, and I was waiting at a seating area in the food court. There were a couple of couches around each other, and it was a common area for anyone to come sit, so I didn't really notice when a man came over and sat on a couch across from me. I was playing on my phone, not paying much attention, until he spoke up and said something along the lines of, "Do you come here often?" I looked up to see a man who was in his late 50s to early 60s. I told him I often did with my friends, and then he introduced himself. I still remember his first name, as it was the same as my dad's. I did not get an initial weird feeling. He looked normal enough, and I would have no reason to be initially weirded out by someone. So I told him my name, and we started making small talk. I am a sociable person, and I have been since a young age, so I was fine talking with what I assumed was just an older man wanting to talk to someone. He started asking me things I liked to do, and I said I enjoyed going out to the local lake and fishing and swimming, to which he said he went out to the same lake every weekend and enjoyed fishing and swimming as well. I said that I enjoyed making music, and he said he liked making music also. I told him I was an avid piano player, and he excitedly told me that he had a piano at his house. There were a few other things I mentioned, and to every one, he said he enjoyed them also. It all felt normal at first, but as we kept talking, I kept getting a weirder and weirder feeling. It was almost like with everything he said, he was trying to prove something and win me over. He said he had a boat at the lake and that we should go sometime together. He even said he lived right across the street from the mall, and that I was welcome to stop by and play piano anytime. Even going as far as telling me the complex he lived in and how to get there from the mall. He even said if I'd like, I could go over that same day and play his piano. With every passing minute, it felt like he was trying harder and harder to get me to hang out with him. Talking with him honestly gave me the weirdest primitive instinct feeling ever. Like I was in the face of evil or bad intentions. After 5 or 10 minutes of talking with him, I lied and said that my friends had arrived and that I was going to go find them. He somewhat sadly said okay and wished me well. A couple weeks go by and my friends and I go to the mall once again, when out of the corner of my eye I see the same man, in a hoodie walking past us in the opposite direction. We locked eyes for a split second and my heart immediately dropped. I I didn't look back, and I honestly forgot about it not long after. But for the next 2 or so months, I would keep seeing him randomly at the mall. I kept brushing it off as a coincidence, as there are definitely regulars at the mall who come often. So I really did not think too much of seeing him, as he never spoke to me since the first day. I would just occasionally see him and he'd be looking at me. I was naive and had a semi-weird feeling anytime I saw him, but like I said, I just brushed it off. Until one day, I went to the mall with my friends again. We hung out for a few hours before leaving and going home our separate ways. I get home and go into my room. No one else was home and I was by myself for a couple of hours. My mom gets home around 7 or 8 p.m. and comes into my room looking somewhat worried, asking if I noticed a guy outside. I said no. She then showed me her phone. We have 2 cameras, one in the front of the house and one in the back. About 20 minutes after I got home, someone approached our house. We lived off a very busy street and our front wall blocks a majority of the view to the street, so we did not see a car park or anything, just a man walking up to our house from the street. The camera was located near our front door, looking out to the driveway, so as he got closer, I realized it was the same man who I had always seen at the mall. I immediately felt sick to my stomach. He came and looked through the front door glass. He walked over to the side of our house near our driveway and left a view of the camera. I remember there was nothing on the back camera, so he had to have stayed by the side of the house for a bit. My room is not located over there, so I have no idea what he could have been doing. He then came back around and looked through the front door again before walking away. I don't know if I was just too embarrassed or scared to say anything, but I said I did not notice and didn't know who that was. My mom found it very strange that he was looking in our house, but I said it could have been a homeless person or a druggie because we live off of a busy street with a bus stop right in front of our house, so we just went with that. My dad added more security cameras after this to deter people, and I never admitted to seeing him before. But after he showed up to my house, it was confirmed to me that he was following me around, and I don't know what his intentions were. He never came back to the house. We moved to a different part of the city not too long after this, and I was too far to go to that mall again. I have not seen him since and wish to never again. To preface, I live in a small college town with 6 other young girls in our 20s. The city we live in is not that nice and has a huge homeless and drug problem, where break-ins are not unusual. However, what happened last Saturday was definitely strange. My roommates and I, as well as some of our boyfriends, were hanging out and drinking in our house, while 2 of the girls opted to go out to a bar. By around 1 a.m., the 2 girls came home from the bar and everyone was tired, so we all went to our own rooms. Later in the night, I was awoken by someone opening my door and standing in my room, staring right at me. In my head, I thought that it was one of my roommate's boyfriends, trying to see if my boyfriend and I were still awake to continue to party. Since I was tired, I pretended to be asleep to avoid being bugged. After a bit, the person closes my door and proceeds to pace back and forth in the hallway. They then begin to attempt to open my roommate's door, whose room is right next to mine. Luckily, her door was locked, and she also had her boyfriend with her. The person then proceeds to go into our utensils drawer and grabs a knife to attempt to pick her lock. After gaining some courage, her boyfriend shouts, "Who the F is that?" which startles the man, who then sprints up the stairs and out the door. The police were called and they did a search and obviously didn't find anything. They told us break-ins in the area were normal, which we knew. However, what makes this whole scenario creepier is that he didn't steal anything. My phone, alcohol, and $600 worth of shoes were untouched. We also suspect that this person was not on drugs or alcohol, as he moved very quietly and deliberately. He was able to get in because the 2 girls who came home from the bar did not lock the door behind them. I'm not sure what the man's intent was, but I am forever grateful that I happened to have my boyfriend with me this night, which is not often as he lives 3 hours away. It gives me chills thinking that a strange man was in my room, and what could have happened to me if I was alone. I grew up in a small town. Total population was maybe 2,000. Everyone knew everyone else, or at least knew your family members. It was a very safe town with mostly middle-class working families. Nothing major ever happened, and the crime rates were low. I grew up feeling safe and secure. And to note, I grew up in the 90s. One summer day, my good friend Jenny and I were out for a bike ride. We were only 11 or 12 years old. We were allowed to bike anywhere we wanted as long as we didn't leave our town and wore our helmets. There was a new road being constructed in between the two main neighborhoods. The new road was to provide a shorter way of accessing the main road to get to the next town. At the time, the road was still under construction, but was nearly complete. All that was left was paving and painting. Jenny and I decided to bike down the gravel road. We were about halfway down the road, and the road was about 1 kilometer long. At the halfway point, we noticed a man walking. He was early 30s and very handsome. I didn't recognize him, and Jenny didn't either. As we got closer, he broke out in a big smile and said hello. We said hello back as he didn't seem threatening or scary. He asked us if we were having a good summer, and we said yes. He told Jenny and I he was a photographer from a nearby city and was in town to scout out models for his new postcard company. He said Jenny and I had beautiful features. He said everything in a very flattering way that made us feel special, and he said that we could be models. He asked if he could take our pictures, and he said that we had the look that he wanted and the scenery right now is perfect to promote the town. He said he also knows we will sell tons of postcards and we could make all the money. Jenny and I eagerly agreed. He got us to stand with our hands on our hips and a big smile. He took a disposable camera out of his back pocket and began snapping photos. He took about 10 photos in total from many angles. I remember feeling a little uneasy and said we probably should go because we needed to be home soon. He said he would get in touch with our principal on the first day of school to give us some money from the postcard sales. We foolishly confirmed we went to the local elementary school, though it was the only elementary school in town, so it wouldn't be hard to figure out, I guess. Neither Jenny or I remember to this day giving him our names. This is an important detail for later. Jenny and I talked about becoming famous on the way home, and I told her that I wondered why he didn't have a professional camera. She said that she wondered that too, but we agreed cameras are expensive, so maybe he didn't have a nice one with him in case it rained. That evening at supper, I told my parents about my potential newfound fame. They were horrified and got on the phone with Jenny's parents. Both of our parents called the police and gave statements, but they sort of downplayed it and said it was unusual, but nothing criminal had happened. My parents had a long talk to me about safety, as did Jenny's parents with her. The following spring, Jenny and I were hanging out together. This time a little bit older and a little wiser, and a lot more cautious. We were walking along a quiet side street, just talking about music and TV shows, when a minivan approached us and slowed down. A friendly-looking woman asked us if we knew where Smith's Road was. We told her she just needed to drive straight for less than a minute, and it's the first right-hand turn. She said she was having difficulty finding it, and would we mind hopping in and showing her? I instantly said no. Jenny also declined. Then the woman said it was okay because she knows who we are. She called us both by our first names and said that she saw us on a postcard. By now, we were both freaked out. We were on a stretch of the road that had no houses. The nearest one was probably 100 meters away or more. And it wasn't common for people to have cell phones back then, so neither Jenny or I had one. The woman continued to ask us to get into her minivan. Jenny, who is normally super chatty, was staring in the vehicle intensely. Her body language was stiff and I could tell she was scared. Suddenly and seemingly out of nowhere, she screamed, "Run!" I didn't know what was happening, but I ran and followed her. We ran off the road and through a field and into a yard another street over. I recognized the yard and house as belonging to a school teacher, so we pounded on her door and she answered. We told her everything that happened, and then Jenny said something I will never forget. She said that she saw the photographer man from last summer crouching down in the very back of the van. She said that she knew something bad was going to happen, so that's why she ran, and I followed her. Police and our parents were called, and we gave statements and a vehicle description, as well as descriptions of the man and the woman. Unfortunately, the police were never able to locate them. Jenny and I never saw them again. We had some serious trust issues with strangers after those encounters, and I've had nightmares of being kidnapped into early adulthood. Always make sure to teach your children that strangers are not safe, no matter how nice they are. My situation could have had a much more unfortunate outcome if things had gone even slightly differently. Those are two people I sincerely hope to never meet again.